Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Small Stages, Big Sounds. Tonight, I'm joined by a Westphalian band called Adfeilion. We'll have a little discussion about who they are, what they're doing, and what their plans are for the future. And then we'll take it from there. If you'd like to introduce yourselves and tell my huge crowd who Adfeilion are.
So, my name is Scott, and I am the nylon guitarist in Adfeilion.
And I'm Matt, and I do the keyboards and also the storytelling in Adfeilion. And it's a pleasure to be on the show, David.
You're both very welcome. As I said, I came across you guys at the Metal to the Masses competition a few weeks ago. And I got to say, I thoroughly enjoyed the music. I told you at the time. I was really well pleased with it. So if you'd like to give us an idea of sort of what kind of music you do, how you got together, and we'll just take it from there.
Of course. I mean, to be honest, it's a strange, meandering journey. Often like some of our songs, I think. It started off born from an ambient project. So me and Scott have been playing around with different genres, different music, different projects for a long time. Not necessarily bands, but more studio projects. And we both share a love of immersive, atmospheric music, particularly ambient electronic music. And then I also had a big love of darker, heavier music, metal, folk metal, heavy metal. And Scott had a love of dark, neo-tribal folk, things like Highland and Nitland. So I think the initial inspirations were born from that atmospheric ambient project with heavier sounds of metal, with the experimentation, the folk and ancestral sounds of the tribal stuff. And then also, I know personally, I'm a big fan of post-rock as well and post-metal, bands like God is an Astronaut. So I think there's a lot of God is an Astronaut behind the sound. Initially, we had a YouTube channel called the Ambient Archive, and we would go out into nature. We would film a 30-minute clip of something we found really beautiful. It could be a waterfall, forest, stream, cliffside. And then we'd create ambient music to put on top of it. And it would be like these relaxing nature ambient videos. We really enjoyed doing that, but we found that as we would upload these videos, we would slowly creep melody into the compositions. And it was almost as if the music that we were trying to create was more than the ambient drones and swells that we had set out to make. So when we were creating the melody, it often would turn to Celtic melody, and Celtic themes, medieval themes, ancestral themes are something that we've both shared. We love massively the Legends of Wales, films and books, media associated with that, and the music. So eventually, from that ambient project, we were like, well, let's put all this together and try to create something we could play live more regularly with the more melodic elements. That's how we got our first gig, if you want to talk a bit more about that.
Well, I think the project really took shape after we'd seen How Long live for the first time in Jorvik Festival up in York. And it was an incredible experience. And we both came away feeling very inspired, particularly by the primal drums. And so I think they became a part of our own music. And there was a big decision into sort of what drums we should include, whether they should be like high lung, but in a Celtic way, or whether they would be more closely related to rock music. And in the end, after some experimentation, I think we found that having a snare and cymbals fit the sound better, and again lent itself more into the medieval vibe, like with the tambourines and the cymbals, the clashing sounds like that, as opposed to sort of the tribal Nordic sounds that weren't really authentic to our roots. And so that's really where the sound came from. I also find it quite interesting in that I would say that a lot of my inspiration was of that medieval origin. I'm classically trained as a pianist and a guitarist, and really didn't have much of a love of metal, I would say, not as compared to Matt right now. But we found the fusion of the two created something extremely unique. And so when we write our songs, often we both enjoy writing the Celtic melodies, but I find that Matt's very good at the sort of darker metal sounds, and somehow they work really, really well together. And I think we've stumbled upon this sort of folk metal or atmospheric folk metal genre almost accidentally in the process.
Yeah, I think a big part of of what we wanted to create was we didn't want to rest with something that was already being done. And I think Highland are doing brilliantly for what they do, right? And we didn't want to replicate that. We wanted to create something different. And early on, when we were experimenting with different drums, we felt like, well, we are kind of just doing the same thing, and we don't want that. And I think taking post rock, post metal, but turning that Celtic and infusing that with the tribal elements, the atmospheric elements, that's something I hadn't seen done. Before. And that was what really excited us when we kind of finally hit on that. And as well, it seemed like it was well received. I think when we played our first ever gig with a drum kit or an acoustic drum kit after about 4 or 5 gigs, because we were playing on a little electronic pad and we were programming in big water drums and stuff like that to have that tribal feel. When we entered the Battle of the Bands competition, the one in Swansea, we were like, this isn't going to work because all the other bands are going to be playing acoustic kits and they're just going to look so much more powerful on stage compared to us. So that's when we got in an acoustic drummer for the first time. And when we heard her drumming the first time over our sounds, we were like, yeah, this is it, this is brilliant. And it was well received by people as well to give us that confidence to move forward with this sound.
Okay, so I can understand the Celtic roots, and the thing that takes me back to, particularly the instrumental aspect of it, the likes of Clanad, potentially.
Yeah,
But obviously, Clanad had a female vocalist as well. So, whilst your music is predominantly instrumental, do you see potentially a future for a vocalist joining the band?
I would say the key thing for Adfeilion is we don't try to limit ourselves with any particular instruments or themes. We've got a set base and foundation with which we enjoy working from, and right now we're very, very comfortable being instrumental. But I definitely don't think we'd rule out the possibility of that happening in the future if the opportunity presented itself. None of us right now in the band are particularly confident singers, so I can't really see it happening now unless we utilize some technology, some effect pedals, some vocoder, something like that. But I don't think we feel the need to. We enjoy, and we're quite, I know I am anyway, I'm quite proud of us being instrumental because it's fairly rare, and I grew up really admiring a lot of instrumental bands. Tangerine Dream, for example, I used to love when I was a kid. God is an Astronaut now, other post-rock bands like If These Trees Could Talk or Jacob. And it's nice to feel like we're bringing some instrumental music into the community and the culture because it's quite rare. However, if we do end up with somebody joining the band who can sing really well, why would we limit ourselves, in that regard? And I think if we did incorporate vocals, I don't know if you'd agree, Scott, but I would say they'd probably be more as a texture.
I was just going to add,
yeah.
actually. So in the first album we created, it was all studio based, but also using like MIDI keyboards and things like this. We did experiment with like Gregorian chant, which is more of a texture than a lead instrument, as it were. And that really worked. So if we are to do anything extra, it might be that in theme with that medieval theme, sort of Gregorian singing. But at the moment, we're writing the second album, and currently there are no vocals, so it remains instrumental as of today.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, that's it.
But still be open to change.
That's it, exactly. And I think as well, it would be hard for us to compose music with lyrics because that's not where the inspiration comes from. When we think about our main influences, for example, none of them have prominent vocals or vocals you'd understand, it would be in a different language or something. And therefore, I would really struggle to sit down and write a song and think, oh yeah, this is where the verse is going to come in, the chorus. Sometimes we work out melodies that would go on the guitar by singing over the top, general hums or lahs or whatever comes to us. But I think I would really struggle if I was thinking we need to write now a song with lyrics that are sung. I wouldn't know how that would be structured very well.
I mean, you can't knock it because, let's face it, Wakeman's made an awful lot of money out of playing instrumental songs for a very long time, as has Mike Oldfield. So, but they are obviously coming to the end of their career, whereas you were starting out in yours. So, who knows? Adfeilion, 30 years' time, could be the Rick Wakeman of the future.
You never know. And I tell you what is really interesting, maybe Scott mentioned it on the day when you were having a chat, is that we were quite, I think, nervous initially going into the Battle of the Bands as an instrumental act, because we felt we were probably going to be limiting our accessibility and ability to really win over the crowd, because it would be a voting system. And of the 40 bands that entered their competition, there were only 2 instrumental bands. One of them was us. The other band was Made Of, who were a great band that I'd recommend people check out. And Made Of came second, and we won. So of the 40 bands, the only 2 instrumental bands came in position first and second in a competition that was primarily crowd voted and then judge voted. And I think that gave us a massive hit of confidence to make us believe that actually instrumental music doesn't have to be niche. It doesn't have to be necessarily for a fringe audience, but if presented in the right way and if you work on things around the music itself, like costume and immersion and props and storytelling and visuals, that it can still be just as engaging to an audience in a live show as one with lyrics that people can sing along to.
I'm sure it can. At the end of the day, as I said, Rick Wakeman told very, very many medieval stories instrumentally, 6 Wives of Henry VIII, etc. So why not? I did say to you on the day that there would have, like I said, I've already mentioned Clannad, but one of the tracks that struck me, albeit not vocally driven, came across to me as a bit like Rammstein. So I can see the metal aspect of it. And, difference being that Rammstein is sung in German. So, maybe if you did go vocally, could be Welsh. Who knows?
Yeah, it's not the first time we've been associated with Rammstein. One of the first gigs we ever did was in the Gower Heritage Centre, which is on the Gower Peninsula, a really beautiful part of Wales. And someone afterwards came to us and said, "You reminded me of Rammstein but nature." And that made us laugh.
Rammstein but nature. That was our first ever review. I definitely see the resemblance as well. I think it probably comes from the fact that they play in similar tunings, but also I think initially Rammstein based a lot of their riffs. I could be wrong here. Apologies to anybody listening that would think otherwise. But I think some of the beauty of their music is that a lot of their riffs are simple but effective, and they're great hooks to get headbanging to. And because I wrote a couple of the riffs for us, I'm not a guitarist really. I'm a much more competent keyboard player. So when I write riffs on a guitar, they have to be pretty simple. So I think the combination of simple but maybe primal riffing and then the same tuning probably equates us quite strongly to Rammstein as well.
So you say that both of yourselves write most of the music. The rest of the band that I saw at the Metal to the Masses, there was obviously a very, very competent guitarist and a bass player that really blew my mind because he was everywhere. So, your rhythm section was exceptionally strong and it carried that depth and that you were looking for with the post-metal stuff. So I thoroughly enjoyed the set, and I said at the time that the people that were there could look out because I thought you were a big challenge.
Oh, I appreciate that. And I tell you what, Tom, the bass player, you'd be thrilled to hear that. Honestly, I think that's really important to acknowledge as well is, even though the project began with me and Scott doing the ambient stuff and taking it live, we would absolutely not be where we are now had we not acquired these amazing musicians along the way and personalities. Rory, our guitarist, exceptionally technical, blows me away. Every time we go into the studio to play something, and he just rips out the first take, and it's amazing, perfectly in time, and he's experimenting with the top of it. Incredible guitar player. Kev, our drummer, he's so proficient and dedicated to the craft. We knew we wanted him to play drums for us because we went over his house once and we saw his drum kit and it just looked battered to hell. He just plays it every day, he loves it, and he's so
I
passionate.
wouldn't want to be his parents.
No, and then Tom as well. He loves it. He's been in lots of bands before. It's his real burning passion in life, and it really comes through in his music and the way that he plays it, and with his energy as well. So it takes all of us to give the performance and the music that we do now. And even though me and Scott so far have written a lot of the music, a lot of that music was written before we acquired these people. And now, as a full band, as a 5-piece, and we're looking at writing the second album, Tom is saying, "Oh yeah, I've got some great songs I want to show you." Kev is writing songs, Roy's writing stuff. So I think moving forward, we're going to see a big evolution in the sound as the individuals we've got now as a 5-piece are all bringing their own songwriting to the table.
So, given that this vision is yours, i.e. the pair of you, how did you persuade these other members to take them on that journey with you?
That is such a good question, and I think they have to be a bit mad to go on this journey, especially to begin with, where we had no recognition, had hardly played live, and we were just trying to explain to people what we want to do. And we had a lot of people who didn't want to do it, and they were like, "No, it doesn't sound like me." I remember really trying to find a drummer, for example, and posting on Facebook, and I would see drummers posting, looking for a band in Swansea, and I'd message them, and they'd be like, "Oh, thank you for messaging, but I've had a listen and it's just not for me." Do you know what I mean? We had a lot of that. With Rory, he was the first person to bring on board. How did you manage to convince him?
So I worked with Rory, and he was over my flat one time. We were just hanging out. I can't remember exactly what we were doing. And we had been speaking about the project, and we were talking about wanting to do more live performance, but we absolutely need a guitarist to do so. And he is a very good guitarist, as you've just mentioned. And he wanted a moment to think about it. And I think it took a couple of days, and then he was all in and he just committed and didn't look back and went with the madness. We asked him to wear the skull as he does on stage, and he just went with it, face paint, and he got fully into it. And I think that's what it takes, to be honest. And the others have done the same. So Tom and Kev, when they've committed, they just understood the vision and didn't look back. And I think that's the sort of character you need to get into a project like this.
I think luckily we had gigs already booked to this point. It was a bit naive from us because we didn't have the people to play the gigs. But we had the gigs booked. So at least we could say, look, if you take a chance with us, at least you're going to get on a stage, you're going to get in front of people, play music, and that's going to be a great experience, for better or for worse. And I think that really helped because as soon as they got on stage and Rory got on the stage for the first time and he played it and he saw people responding to it and he was in the makeup and the skull and playing his guitar, that's what made him fall in love with it. And I think it's the same with Tom, the same with Kev. I remember their first gigs were all very, very strong experiences and great memories. So yeah, without having that live experience to reinforce the idea, I think we probably wouldn't have been able to get them.
Like I said, it's nice to know how you came together because this vision is obviously both of yours. And to persuade someone to join you on that journey is incredible. You must have incredibly persuasive storytelling. That's all I can say.
I think ultimately I've often looked back and thought about our early days and the gigs we were booking and the confidence we were presenting to be almost a form of delusion, because we probably we weren't going to live up to that, particularly with only two of us. But we were so passionate about it. We always had been. But for some reason, we always believed in this project. And I think it's the passion that we transmitted when we were talking to these guys. And we were like, they must have picked up on the fact that, yeah, these guys, they're a bit mental, but they're on a journey and it'll be fun. Even if it crashes and burns, it's going to be fun along the way, because I think we were just so passionate about it.
And I would also add that some of the first few gigs that we did, when we look back at now, were pretty awful, to be honest. But you could see the vision was there. And that vision has only become more of a reality with the competent people when they've joined. And I think we sound and look like what we always thought we sounded and looked like. And it's only because they jumped on board with us and saw the vision.
I'd like to give you something to think about. Another band that have this visual storytelling throughout their 4 album set, and I've seen them several times and reviewed all the albums, is the Raven Age.
Yes, the guitarist is the son of Iron Maiden bassist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen the Raven Age twice because I'm a big fan of Iron Maiden. So going to see Iron Maiden, they were supporting them. And you're right, a lot of the themes, a lot of it is based on medieval imagery of castles and obviously ravens and folklore. And yeah, that wasn't lost on me as well. And I like how they turn those albums into concept albums of story.
So how are they different to what we do? I haven't seen them.
They got vocals.
They got vocals.
They got vocals and they're very heavy.
Okay.
But nonetheless, I mean, the difference being, obviously, they've got a bit of familial interest and they've played big stages around the world because of that. So their profile is a lot higher than yours. But, you know, I've seen them play the Fleece in Bristol as well, you know, so, and they're up Steelhouse Festival in July.
Yeah.
So although they've played big stadia, whatever the plural is, with Iron Maiden and other bands, they still play in grassroots music venues as well.
That's nice.
So, you know, might be worthwhile tipping your hat, potentially, as a support.
Would love that.
Oh, we'd be honoured.
If you think about it, I mean, you're playing Bloodstock, so that's a pretty big festival. All right, it's on the Discovery stage, but nonetheless, you're still there. So
it was just this morning that I basically woke up to Matt's message showing me the Bloodstock lineup, and seeing our little name at the bottom there was surreal. Being on the same poster as Trivium and Machine Head Gojira, it's just, I can't quite believe that we're there in just 2 years, to be honest.
I saw the poster as well, and I thought, where are they? There they are. First ones on the Discovery stage.
It's so funny because for so long we've cursed the fact that we begin with an A, because we swear, even though it's supposed to be a randomly generated wheel and selection, that being first in alphabetical order means that we're more likely to be first on these battle heats, because we've played 8 battle heats now. If you take all the heats for the last Swansea Battle of Bands and then this South Wales Medal for the Masses, and I think we've been first on the bill 5 times. We've been first 5 times. We've played last once and we played second twice. So that's so disproportionate. And I feel like the way they all use the same random selection wheel. And I think when they input the bands, it's alphabetical order. And I think the A band goes to a certain position away from the selector. So when you press it, this is all theory. This is all a mad conspiracy.
The alphabetical order has played favourably for us. So we are on the poster.
So when we saw the poster, and we were first on it because of alphabetical order. We were like, oh, finally, it pays back all these. Yeah,
karma.
Exactly.
All you got to wait and do is to find out where you actually are on the bill on the day, though. But, nonetheless, I've seen some exceptional bands first on a bill. I've just done a review of Steelhouse, and one of the bands that blew me away a few years ago was a band called Mother Vulture. They were first up on, they were first up on the Saturday morning. Of course, everybody was hungover, and they came on stage and everybody went, what? Because they were incredible. I mean, the guitarist was playing his absolutely beautiful green Gretsch, and at the end of the set, he jumped off the stage, over the barrier, and was laying his back on the mud playing his guitar.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
It was incredible.
Bloodstock, right?
I have to take that as inspiration.
It was incredible, Like I said, there are other bands around there that play the similar style of music that you do. You just got to keep an eye out for them, and I've probably seen most of them. Usually first on the bill.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, it's still on the experimental side, isn't it? And I think you're going to want to put that earlier on the bill rather than later. I think just to test it out, and especially in a new audience. But yeah, there's a couple of bands that we're really excited to see in Bloodstock. Some folk metal bands, Una Wolf, who won the Medal to the Masters in Sheffield, Helen, who I think just caught the eye of Simon and are playing the New Blood stage with us. There's also Ofnus, who is Alan's band, who helped out to create the Day of Reckoning. Cool black metal band from Wales, and they played in the Day of Reckoning as well. And there's also, I don't know how you pronounce it, but Ewa, something like this. It's like a tribal pagan folk band similar to Heilung that are playing in Bloodstock. There's a band who won, I think, I could be wrong here, but it was either Norwich or Kent. I think it was Norwich, called Koba. And they're a post-metal band that are instrumental, and they mix trance-type electronic stuff. So, and that's just a New Blood stage, Well, and with Ofnus on the
Sophie Lancaster.
Sophie Lancaster. So when we think about the headliners as well, Trivium and Gojira, Machine Head and Lacuna Coil, just so many bands we can take so many inspirations from, to learn so many lessons from, hopefully make connections with as well, and play further down the road,
Like I said, if you are first, you get a chance to see everybody else.
That's it, exactly.
But the days will deliver what they deliver.
Yeah.
So, you said you're in the process of writing your second album. When do you see that coming to fruition?
So, if I start by saying our first album that was professionally recorded earlier this year is coming out on the 1st of August. So we released the single about a week and a half ago. And then the full album will be released 1st of August.
Right, let me hold you there. If you want to send the album across, I'll write a review.
That would be incredible. We'd really appreciate that. So we'll send it over when it comes out. And then in the meantime, we have been writing, like I said, the second album. We are about sort of halfway into the project at the moment, and then we will get that professionally recorded, hopefully with the same producer that we worked with the first time. So that's James Weaver, who lives in Swansea, incredibly talented producer who is extremely patient with us and our vision. So I think we'll probably try to do the second one with him as well. And I would foresee that to come out next year at some point.
Springtime.
Yeah, springtime if we can. It's a work in progress, and it's hard to put a date on something that isn't finished yet, but we want to produce it to the highest standard again, and I think there'll be some evolution in our sound, given that we have the time and experience now to write something even more mature.
Plus, you've also got different views on the music with the other band members.
Exactly, that's very true.
Absolutely, and it feels like with the first album, we hadn't quite defined what we were. So we were experimenting, we were creating music that we thought was exciting and interesting to us. But now we know what we are. We are very confident in the themes that we want to and the messages we want to project in the music, and how to make sure we're writing music that can be transferable to a live context as well. So this second album will be coming out next year. It's almost purified. It's like a born from the ground up of purified essence of what we are very passionate about within this project. So it's sounding really, really exciting. But the album that's coming out in a few weeks as well, we're so excited to bring that out. It's been a long, long time coming. We've waited and waited, but now it just feels so right to drop this just before Bloodstock as well on August the 1st, which will be a real big historic moment for us.
Yeah, it's also Lunasa, which is one of the Celtic festivals, and it's on the same day that we play the Green Rooms in Pontypridd. So quite an exciting day, and also really nice to have that ready for Bloodstock as well.
So, having gone to this first album and the second album, you've got Bloodstock, you've got the Green Rooms concert. What else have you got coming up towards the end of the year?
It's a busy end to the year, I must admit, and there are still things that are yet to be confirmed that could make it even busier. Right now, things that have been confirmed. So we've got the Green Rooms Festival on Friday, the 1st of August, and that's a whole weekend festival. We're playing on the Friday, but the festival itself extends Saturday and Sunday, and there's loads of amazing bands there, including a lot of the bands who played the Metal to the Masses final with, like Carmen Field, Akuma, Struggler. And then Bloodstock. After Bloodstock, we've got our first Cardiff gig in 5th of September, which is part of a black metal night in Fuel with Suffering and Zelda. Then we've got in October the 18th, we're playing in Liverpool with Thuna Wolf and Cromheim from London and Sheffield. Really excited for that. We've heard great things about the music culture in Liverpool, and our drummer went to university in Liverpool, so he's got a lot of friends there that have been desperate for us to come up north, so that's going to be great. And then at the end of October, on the 1st, we've got a Samhain gig, so a Halloween gig in Elysium in Swansea, and we're playing with some amazing bands. Route Zero, who won the Metal to the Masses South Wales last year, Pyrogaric from Newport, and also Helga from Bristol. That's going to be a great gig. Elysium is where we played our first ever venue gig as well, so it's like a nice homecoming. And then the Swansea Battle of the Bands has just started again, and usually the tradition is that they bring back the previous year winner to play a headline show in their final, and that's usually somewhere in November in the Bunkhouse. So we're playing that. We're yet to be confirmed, but we've applied for the Swansea Fringe, which will be end of November, the last weekend of November, which would be great to be a part of. And that's it for now.
I think that's it, but that's a lot. We're going to be putting all of this information on our Instagram and Facebook so that you don't have to keep rewinding this to try to find the dates and time.
Right then. Well, thank you very much for your time.